chaos that builds empires. It is not impulse that wins wars, and it is never the loud, the reckless, or the reactive that shape the course of history. It is the quiet rhythm of a man who wakes with purpose, a steady beat of discipline, the ritual of rising day after day, regardless of mood, fear, fatigue, or applause. That is where victory begins. Winston Churchill did not outtalk his enemies. He outlasted them. He faced down the night not with emotion, with order. He didn't react to pressure. He rehearsed for it. And when the storms came, he didn't flinch because he had already built his shelter brick by brick in the unnoticed hours of discipline. Discipline is not about being perfect. It is not about punishment. It is the architecture of the mind, the blueprint of greatness. And Churchill built it with military precision every single day. He rose when others slept. He read when others scrolled. He planned when others hoped. And while the world around him burned, his inner world remained organized not by chance, not by genius, by routine repeated with a devotion most reserved for religion. Because here's the truth. Success is never spontaneous. It is engineered. And Churchill engineered his days like a general preparing for siege, not only against foreign enemies, but against doubt, fatigue, chaos, and the undisciplined mindset and belief. Churchill believed that your day is not just a sequence of hours. It is a weapon, a sword forged by repetition and sharpened by habit. He understood what modern minds forget, that when you master your day, you don't just manage time, you own it. Most people drift through their mornings like leaves in a river, tossed by emails, moods, notifications, the whims of the world. Churchill did not drift. He designed. His schedule was his strategy. He broke his day into parts. Thinking time, writing time, rest, war councils, reflection, and solitude. It wasn't just about productivity. It was about protection. Because when you don't build your routine, the world will build one for you. One designed not for purpose, but for distraction. Churchill's belief was radical in its simplicity. Control your inputs. Discipline your mind. Shape your outcomes. And here's what most forget. He wasn't born organized. He was forged by necessity. His early life was chaotic, unfocused, scattered with failures and uncertainty. But when the weight of the world fell on his shoulders, he didn't panic. He systematized. Because discipline is not the absence of emotion. It is the refusal to let emotion lead. Churchill knew that discipline without vision is a cage. But discipline with clarity of purpose, that's a sword, and he wielded it like a warrior. Most people wander through life asking small questions. How do I stay motivated? How do I find time? Churchill asked different questions. How do I move nations? How do I bend history without breaking under it? And the answer was always the same. Through daily discipline, guided by a vision larger than comfort. He was not merely fighting Germany. He was fighting decay, a slow rot of hesitation, the disease of indecision that kills men long before war does. So every morning, before the world even stirred, he wrote letters, speeches, plans, thoughts turned into tools. He didn't wait for clarity. He commanded it. Because waiting for motivation is the strategy of amateurs. Leaders don't wait. They build clarity into their routine. You want purpose? Then stop looking for signs. Start building systems. Because purpose isn't found in some grand epiphany. It is sculpted through action, through order, through repetition. Churchill wasn't chasing comfort. He was chasing consequence. He knew that if he didn't own his time, someone else would own his fate. And so, in the early hours, he wrote the future, not just for himself, but for millions. In silence, in solitude, in the sacred temple of routine. That is how legends are made. Not in crowds, but in rooms with closed doors, early mornings, late nights. No applause, just purpose burning quietly like a lamp in the dark. There were days Churchill didn't feel like leading. There were nights he was crushed by the weight of the world. But he returned again and again, the rhythm that restored him. Because purpose without discipline dies in the fire. Purpose with discipline, that is how you outlast the war. So if you feel unclear, if you feel directionless, if you're waiting for lightning to strike and show you the way, stop waiting. Start designing. Start crafting a day so intentional, so precise, that your mind has no choice but to obey the rhythm you give it. Clarity is not a mood. It's not a mystery. It's a side effect of repetition aligned with purpose. Churchill understood this, and so must you. The world remembers Churchill for his speeches, but speeches don't win wars. Systems do. Behind every word spoken to a nation was a day planned with precision. Behind every act of courage was an R no one saw, filled with repetition, discipline, and movement. Because greatness is not a result of big moments. It's built in the mundane, then revealed in the monumental. Churchill didn't wake up each day hoping to feel inspired. He woke up already committed. He believed in the compound interest of decisive action. Not once, not sometimes, but daily. He wrote, he walked, he read, he reviewed intelligence, drafted policy, mentored ministers, and mapped strategy. He wasn't waiting for the right moment. He made every moment right. You see, most people think discipline is about doing things you hate. It's not. Discipline is doing what needs to be done, especially when no one is watching. It is falling in love with the structure that serves your mission. It is showing up not because you feel like it, but because the world needs you to. Churchill wasn't rigid. He wasn't robotic, but he was relentless. And that's the difference. It wasn't about perfection. It was about persistence, the kind that builds momentum not through speed, but through consistency, the kind that turns small steps into seismic shifts. Each task in his routine, no matter how small, had one goal: to keep the wheels turning, to keep the machine of progress humming. That's the mistake most make. They wait for motivation to move, wait for the stars to align. But Churchill knew the stars weren't coming, so he built his own constellation, one habit at a time. Action, he believed, was not optional, because inaction is a decision to fall behind, to surrender power, to wait for life instead of leading it. He didn't have the luxury of procrastination, not with bombs falling, not with freedom in question, not with the nation on the brink. And neither do you, because while you hesitate, the clock doesn't. The world won't pause for your fear, your delay, or your doubt. It moves, and you must choose whether to move with it or be moved by it. Churchill chose the first, not once, but every single day. That is the power of daily action born from discipline. It creates rhythm, and rhythm becomes momentum, and momentum becomes victory. Churchill's routine was not a prison. It was a fortress, one with open gates when the winds of war demanded flexibility, because discipline is not about being inflexible. It's about being unbreakable. When London burned beneath the bombs of the Blitz, he didn't retreat into comfort. He adapted, he adjusted, but he never abandoned the rhythm that kept his mind sharp and his mission clear. He understood that the point of a routine isn't to control everything. It's to anchor yourself when everything else is out of control. In times of peace, it is preparation. In times of chaos, it is survival. The enemy isn't disruption. The enemy is disorientation. And routine is the antidote. The map you draw before you get lost. Churchill didn't panic when plans were shattered. He pivoted, but He pivoted with purpose. He didn't let adversity hijack his schedule. He absorbed the impact, adjusted the course, and kept moving forward. Because he understood this truth, a flexible routine is not a weak one, it is a living one. He learned to bend without breaking. He welcomed the unpredictable, but on his terms, while others were consumed by reaction. Churchill trained his discipline to absorb change without losing conviction. He wasn't immune to exhaustion. He was no stranger to doubt. When the world cracked under pressure, he reached for the one thing that held his daily practice. It's easy to be structured when everything goes right. But what about when the bombs drop? Figuratively or literally, what happens to your habits then? That's when routine becomes more than routine. It becomes a lifeline. The repetition you've built in times of calm becomes your compass in the storm. And Churchill had trained his hands to stay steady no matter how hard the earth shook beneath them. Resilience isn't found in shouting back at the chaos. It's in continuing your mission, your purpose, your process, regardless of the noise. That's what made Churchill formidable. He didn't just survive adversity, he absorbed it, turned it into energy, used it to refine his edge. The air raid sirens didn't cancel his leadership, amplified it. And they did so because he had already built the foundation long before. The bombs fell, so when crisis comes, and it always will, don't throw away your structure. Don't abandon your rhythm, return to it. Protect it. Let it protect you. That is how leaders rise when others fall apart, not through spontaneous brilliance, but through practiced resilience, drilled into their bones by daily decisions. Churchill didn't just discipline his actions, he disciplined his mind. He didn't rise to power because he knew all the answers. He rose because he never stopped learning. He read endlessly biographies, histories, philosophies. He wasn't trying to escape the world through books. He was arming himself with insight. Where most men skim for information, Churchill studied for wisdom. He made reading part of his day like most make coffee, not as an indulgence, but as fuel. Because he knew this, a powerful mind is not born, it is built. One page, one paragraph, one idea at a time. He understood that the leader who stops learning has already begun to die. That when your thinking falls behind, your influence follows. So he made it part of his system, not random, not when convenient, but daily. Reflection was not something he did when all was quiet. It was built into the rhythm of command. He carved space to review, revise, rethink. He used silence like a scalpel. He'd sit for hours in the still of night, not lost in confusion, sharp with thought. The silence didn't scare him. It revealed him. That's the difference between leaders and followers. Followers wait to be told. Leaders think so deeply, so consistently, that clarity rises without permission. And Churchill didn't just reflect on victories, he reflected on mistakes. Too, he welcomed critique. He studied his failures. He dissected every decision, not to shame himself, but to sharpen himself. Because true discipline is not defensive. It is curious. It asks, how could I be better? And then it goes to war with the answer. He read not just for pleasure, but for preparation. He studied the rise and fall of civilizations. He examined the minds of Lincoln, Caesar, Bismarck, not to admire them, to learn from them, to understand how empires rise, how minds crack under pressure, how ambition can be harnessed or hijacked. He fed his intellect like an athlete trains muscle, with intention, precision, and unwavering consistency. So ask yourself, when was the last time you scheduled thinking into your day? Not scrolling, not reacting, not consuming noise, but thinking slow, uncomfortable, honest thinking. Because if you don't discipline your mind, The world will distract it into USCLESSNESS. And in times of crisis, the mind you've built is the weapon you wield. Sharpen it now, or be broken by dullness later. Discipline is not just how you grind, it's also how you recover. And Churchill understood this with surgical clarity. He didn't worship hustle, he commanded energy. Most people mistake exhaustion for progress. But Churchill knew a tired mind is a vulnerable one. And in the theater of war, clarity was currency. So, while others glorified burnout, Churchill designed cycles, bursts of intense work, followed by deep restoration. He wasn't soft. He was strategic. He took naps in the middle of the day, not out of laziness, but out of warrior logic. Because if you're going to fight until midnight, you better train your mind to reset at 3 p.m. He would work for hours, then retreat to silence. Not to quit, but to reload. His rest was as deliberate as his labor, because he wasn't just building a schedule, he was building stamina. And stamina is not the ability to work endlessly, it's the ability to rise again, and again, with strength intact. Churchill's bath time, sacred. His meals, ordered, never rushed. His reading chair, a command post of reflection. Why? Because he understood the quality of your action depends on the quality of your energy. No soldier marches forever. No general fights every battle back to back. Victory is not just sustained action. It is sustainable action. So he protected his mental core like a vault. He didn't let the noise in too early. He didn't sacrifice his body for the illusion of progress. This was not weakness. This was wisdom. The man leading a war could not afford to fall apart. So he didn't just master pressure, he mastered recovery. And you must do the same. Because if you want to endure at the highest level, if you want your impact to echo across decades, not days, then you need to build a system that doesn't just push you forward, pulls you back at the right moments. True discipline is knowing when to charge and when to pause, when to sharpen the blade and when to let the hand rest. So rethink how you rest. Don't see it as weakness. See it as part of the war plan. Because you're not just here to fight hard, you're here to fight long. And that requires not just effort, but strategy. When the weight of the world pressed down, Churchill didn't just resist, he reframed. He didn't ask, why me? He asked, well, now, because at the highest level of leadership, it's not what you face that defines you. It's what you believe about what you face. Where others saw hopelessness, he found defiance. Where others saw endings, he saw chances to begin again. He looked upon rubble and saw rebuilding. He heard sirens and felt purpose, not panic. He faced death and answered not with despair, but with decision. That was no accident. That was emotional discipline built into his routine as deliberately as any battle plan. Churchill practiced perspective like a soldier trains for war. He chose his lens. He chose his story. And above all, he chose gratitude. Yes, gratitude in the fire. Not for the pain, but for the purpose it revealed. Not for the war, but for the will it awakened. He would step back, even in the most overwhelming moments, and look at life not as something happening to him, something happening through him. And this is a truth few understand. Gratitude is not an emotion. It is a discipline, a mental muscle. And Churchill trained it like everything else. When he looked at challenge, he saw the chance to test his mettle. When he looked at chaos, he saw the opportunity to organize it. He knew this, that no man can lead a people through fire if he is emotionally ruled by the flames. So he anchored his day in rituals of perspective, reflection, prayer, laughter. Yes, even laughter, because a man who can laugh in war is a man who will not be broken by it. This was not delusion. This was dominance over his own state, because while others waited for good feelings to lead them, Churchill led his feelings like soldiers, directed them, commanded them, used them, but never bowed to them. You want to rise, then train your emotions, discipline your perspective, and build into your daily structure the power to see clearly when the world goes dark. Because emotional chaos kills dreams before failure does. But emotional order, that's the fuel that carries a mission to completion. Don't just command your calendar, command your mind. Don't just organize your hours, organize your outlook. Because the strongest man in the room is not the loudest. He is the one who refuses to surrender his inner world to the chaos of the outer. Discipline was never Churchill's goal. It was his tool to shape history with precision, not accident. Because he knew a great leader is not remembered for the hours he worked. He's remembered for what those hours produced. And Churchill's hours, they produced speeches that stirred the blood of nations. They produced decisions that turned tides, policies that preserved liberty, and a presence so unshakable that entire cities breathed easier when he entered the room. That is not charisma. That is consistency. That is what happens when a man does not deviate, when he holds the line, when he builds each day like a brick in a cathedral no one else can yet see. Others wandered through life. Churchill constructed his. He didn't seek legacy. He lived it. And by living it with routine, his very life became a blueprint. Because when your routine is aligned with your mission, you don't have to find motivation. You become it. He wasn't driven by applause. He was driven by outcome. And outcomes are born of systems. Not occasional inspiration. Habitual greatness. Every morning spent reading. Every memo written in silence. Every nap. Every cigar. Every night in the war room. It was all part of a system. Not always pretty. Not always perfect. But always intentional. And that's what made him formidable. Not just that he faced fear, but that he faced it daily. With a routine that refused to bend to circumstance. Because in the end, this is what discipline really is. Not force, not rigidity. The highest form of self-respect ought to say, my time matters, my mission matters, and I will not surrender either to chance. You want to build a life that endures? Then live with structure, live with rhythm, live with a daily order that demands your best. Not just once, but every single day. Do not wait for the world to slow down. It won't. Do not wait for the fire to die out. One single quotes instead. Build the fire inside you. Feed it with routine. Feed it with discipline. Feed it with the actions no one sees. So that one day, your results are so loud, the world cannot look away. Churchill did not beat tyranny with strength alone. He beat it with structure. He outlasted the storm because he built something the storm could not touch. A daily code, a quiet order, a life built by routine. And so must you. If you want to lead, then lead yourself first and do it every day, whether the world watches or not, because his legacy is not created in victory. It is created in discipline. And that is how you win the war before it begins.